They thought he was an easy target, a billionaire CEO eating in a quiet restaurant. 5 men walked in, faces hard, voices low, pretending to order food. But everyone knew. They weren't here to eat. The CEO didn't panic. He was calm, almost too calm. People recorded whispering, thinking they'd witness a robbery or maybe something worse. But then, just as one attacker reached for his jacket, a waitress dropped her tray. Her stance shifted, eyes sharp, shoulders loose. A hidden confidence lit up her face. This wasn't just a waitress. And what she did next. It shocked every single person in that room and turned the entire attack upside down. Watch till the end. You do not want to miss this twist. Soft jazz floated through La Mirabelle, the kind of elegant restaurant where time seemed to slow down. The lighting was warm and golden, bouncing off crystal glasses and polished cutlery. The air smelled faintly of truffle oil, rosemary, and expensive imported wine. People weren't just here to eat. This was where deals were born, power was displayed, and reputations were cemented. At the far booth near the tall window sat Alexander Voss, a name whispered in boardrooms and splashed across business headlines. Billionaire tech tycoon, founder of Voss Innovations. A man rumored to have toppled competitors with a calm smile and ruthless precision. To most, he looked like success itself. Sharp jawline, perfectly tailored charcoal suit, a watch worth more than a sports car. But tonight, he wasn't surrounded by advisors, lawyers, or investors. He sat alone, not lonely, just alone by choice, like someone comfortable in isolation. A tablet in front of him glowed softly as he scanned documents. To any stranger, he looked simply focused. But there was something else, something few people ever noticed. His calm wasn't normal. It was the kind of stillness only powerful men with dangerous histories carried. And across from him, on the wall's reflection, he watched the room without appearing to. At a nearby table, a couple whispered excitedly. A group of office workers laughed at inside jokes. Soft clinks of plates, the scrape of cutlery, the murmur of conversations created a luxurious lull. The only sound that occasionally broke it? The click of heels, Elena. A waitress in a neat black uniform, hair tied back in a simple bun, face composed, movements graceful and quiet. She wasn't flashy. She didn't flirt, didn't giggle, didn't show off. She worked efficiently, serving tables with a soft, "Of course," or "Right," away. Most guests barely looked at her, just another service worker in the background of wealthy lives. But there was something different in her eyes, something sharp, alert, disciplined. She moved like someone who studied people, like someone who always had a read on the room. She set a plate of seared lamb in front of a guest, posture perfect, then turned and subtly scanned the entrance. She did that every few minutes. Most would never notice. But you don't run a billion-dollar empire in a hostile world without learning to see what others miss. Alexander noticed. Their eyes met once, briefly. Hers, calm, assessing. His, curious, analytical. Then she turned away, disappearing like a ghost between tables. A soft breeze pushed open the glass doors as 3 new guests entered. No, not guests. They didn't look like the power suit crowd or the polished elite. Jackets too bulky for the mild evening, boots heavy, expression stiff. They paused just inside, eyes scanning the room with the subtlety of wolves trying and failing, not to look like wolves. Elena's hand paused mid-motion as she wiped a glass. She recognized the type. Not businessmen, not diners, observers, predators. The maitre d' approached them, professional smile plastered on. But the shortest of the 3 raised a hand and shook his head before the host even spoke. A dismissive gesture, casual but disrespectful. Alexander didn't look up, but his reflection did. They sat near the bar, silent, eyes drifting, counting exits, watching security cameras, taking stock of patrons. The calm hum of the restaurant swallowed them up, but the energy shifted. Just a tiny fraction, but enough that instinctive creatures felt it. A fork paused mid-air at a nearby table. Someone glanced over their shoulder. The air pressure changed the way it does before a storm. Elena inhaled deeply, then exhaled, slow, controlled. She placed the glass down. Her fingers tapped once on the counter, an old habit, one she'd buried years ago. Click, click, click. Signals to herself. Stay alert. Measure distance. Assess threat. She brushed her apron, walked to Alexander's table, and replaced his empty water glass, speaking without meeting his eyes. More sparkling or still, sir? He noticed her tone. Neutral. Too neutral. Still, he answered quietly. Eyes never leaving her face. She nodded and walked away, but his gaze followed her for one extra second, like two chess masters silently acknowledging each other's move. Outside, a black SUV rolled by slowly. Its tinted windows reflected the streetlight glow. It didn't stop, but in its brief pass, the three men inside the restaurant shifted slightly, as if tension tightened a rope between them. Elena caught it. So did Alexander. Some things don't need words. Behind the bar, Chef Bruno yelled at a new trainee for cutting carrots wrong, completely unaware. A violin track floated through the speakers. The world kept pretending everything was normal, but on an invisible frequency. Only two people were listening, the billionaire with enemies and the waitress who had once trained to face them. Elena returned to the kitchen briefly. She opened the fridge door, pretending to grab herbs, but her eyes moved to the corner shelf where a small metal box sat. She wasn't supposed to know what was in it. Staff emergency kit, they called it. Inside, a radio, a first aid kit, and a discreet pepper gel canister. The owner kept it just in case. She hoped tonight wouldn't be just in case. When she stepped back out, her posture had changed, barely noticeable, but real. The softness in her shoulders was gone. Her steps lighter, breath measured, chin lifted half an inch. The kind of body language people pick up only after years of intense training, where stillness is a weapon and movement is a promise. She scanned the room again. 5 men now. 2 must have slipped in the back while she was in the kitchen. They didn't talk. They didn't look at menus. They waited. Elena's pulse slowed, the way it did before competitions, before missions. Before a fight, she prayed she wouldn't have to finish. She moved toward the private booth, refilling glasses, checking on customers, pretending nothing was wrong. When she passed Alexander again, she said quietly without moving her lips, "Do you need help?" Most people would have missed the whisper entirely. Alexander didn't. His fork paused. His eyes lifted. For a microsecond, the mask slipped. He wasn't calm anymore. He was calculating. "You?" he murmured. Elena didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her stillness spoke louder than words. He gave the slightest nod, so small only someone trained to look for it would catch it. At table 12, a little girl giggled at her dessert, licking chocolate from her spoon. Her father scrolled his phone. A couple celebrated an anniversary, clinking champagne glasses softly. Life continued, in blissful ignorance of what was tightening around them. The restaurant glowed. Outside, city lights glimmered. The world didn't know it was seconds away from chaos. Alexander wiped his mouth with his napkin, adjusted his cufflinks, straightened slightly, as if preparing to rise at any moment. In the bar mirror, the 5 men finally moved. Not much, just a lean, a slide of a chair, a glance. Predators impatient to strike. Elena set down a tray, fingers flexing lightly. Her breath didn't shake. Her eyes didn't blink. Somewhere inside, an old version of herself stood up again, the one she had sworn to bury. She didn't choose this moment. It chose her, and in that golden-lit restaurant, between crystal glasses and expensive silence, a line was drawn, unseen, unheard, but undeniable. Everything still looked beautiful. Everything still sounded peaceful. But danger had already taken its seat at the table, and the only thing between a billionaire and 5 armed men was a waitress no one ever noticed. Not yet, but they would. Soon enough. The restaurant clock ticked past 8:47 p.m., a harmless minute to everyone dining under chandeliers and soft violin music, yet inside La Mirabelle, the air had thickened. Silence began to hide inside sounds. Innocent conversations suddenly felt fragile, like glass one touch away from shattering. Alexander Voss dabbed his mouth with a napkin again. His movements were slow, meticulous, controlled. He looked like a man finishing dinner. But he was studying exits, angles, distances, reflections in cutlery. He knew violence when it crept in quietly. Across the room, one of the 5 men lifted a menu he never intended to read. Beneath it, his eyes scanned employees, cameras, blinds, corners. He wasn't nervous. He was hunting. Elena noticed the way his thumb tapped the wooden table. Silent rhythm, steady cadence. Men trained to synchronize. They weren't amateurs. Her throat tightened, involuntary, only for a moment. She slipped behind the counter, pretending to organize wine glasses, but really to observe them from another angle, 2 near the bar. 2 near the rear hallway, the last one seated closest to Alexander. She clocked the details. Boots with reinforced soles, bulky jackets in warm weather, scar along one man's neck, calloused knuckles, 1 earpiece, disguised as a music earbud. The way they didn't fidget, predators don't fidget. These weren't street thugs, and not police either. 2 unmarked, 2 loose, private, paid, prepared. A soft clink echoed, a wine glass hitting a plate too hard. The couple at table 7 looked up, uneasy without understanding why. Humans always felt danger before they could explain it. Alexander's finger traced the rim of his glass. His face composed, but every muscle wired underneath. Across the room, the maitre d' smiled politely at guests, oblivious, the way civilians always are, seconds before chaos. Elena didn't want civilians here. Not tonight. She needed to clear the room, but subtly. Panic was a spark. Panic made bullets fly. She approached a young couple near the door first. "Complimentary dessert tasting at the terrace tonight," she smiled. "Chef's special celebration. If you'd like to enjoy the evening breeze." The girl's face brightened. The boy shrugged, but smiled too. 2 people safely moved out. Next, a family. She bent to the little girl, voice soft. "The chef is giving free chocolate tarts to young princesses tonight. Would you like one outside?" "Chocolate." "Magic word." The girl squealed. The parents stood, smiling apologetically. Elena waved them toward the terrace. 4 more out. 10 still inside. A drop in the ocean, but every drop counted, Alexander noticed. His gaze met hers again, this time not curious, respectful. He understood. She was clearing civilians first. The man sitting closest to Alexander glanced around, eyes narrowing. He noticed guests leaving. His jaw flexed subtly beneath stubble. He leaned toward another operative and whispered without moving lips. Suspicion. Elena's heart thudded once. Slow, solid. A deep breath. She lifted a silver tray and walked toward the kitchen, shoulders loose, steps casual. At the swing door she turned slightly, scanning softly. One of the men near the back door had disappeared. Her stomach dropped. She pushed the kitchen door, entering calm, leaving dread on the other side. Inside, the kitchen buzzed. Steam, sizzling pans, Chef Bruno yelling at onions like they insulted him. Utensils clanged. Life was normal back here. She envied them. "Everything good?" Bruno asked, wiping sweat from his brow. She forced a smile. "All fine, chef. Just preparing for terrace service." Her voice betrayed nothing. That discipline came from another life. She opened the emergency box quietly. Her hand hovered, pepper gel canister cold against her palm. She didn't take it yet, not until necessary. Showing a weapon too early invited speed. Timing matters more than strength. She closed the box and lifted a tray with empty champagne flutes, excuse to return. As she re-entered, she saw him, the missing one, standing near the restroom corridor. But he wasn't headed to the restroom. He was checking the back staff exit, blocking it. Every escape path was being sealed. She walked past him, pretending not to notice. She could feel his eyes scrape across her back like a blade edge. When she reached the bar, she exhaled quietly. 1 breath. 1 second, reset. The violin track faded. A new song began. Piano, slow, heavy, melancholy. Beautifully tragic timing. Alexander set his tablet aside. His silverware clinked softly. He lifted his glass, not to drink, but to see reflections. He adjusted his cufflink again. Coded movement. 3 tables away, one of the men nodded. A signal passed unseen. But Elena felt it. Then the lights flickered, just once, but enough to send goosebumps up her arms. Someone had tapped into the power line, a subtle reminder. Control was shifting, and then the restaurant front door locked. Soft click, clean, quiet. Nobody but her and Alexander heard it. Everything in Elena froze. Breath, blood, bone, then resumed with icy focus. No more time to slowly evacuate. This was the part training never mimicked perfectly. When air split, when instinct sharpened, when every heartbeat sounded like a countdown, she set the tray down slowly. Across the room, the man closest to Alexander stood, too calm, too balanced. His chair didn't scrape, his boots planted firm. Elena's fingertips touched the wooden edge of the counter, light, poised. Like a sprinter at the starting block. The man approached Alexander with casual confidence. Elena glanced at a nearby couple still finishing dessert. The woman giggled, feeding her partner a spoonful of crème brûlée, unaware they were sharing sweetness in the last moments of normalcy. Elena moved, slow, smooth, casual. She approached their table, voice soft. "Would you like your coffee served outside?" "It's a perfect night." The woman blinked, confused, but Elena's eyes held hers, firm and urgent in a polite mask. The woman swallowed. Something primal ignited in her, danger sensed through instinct, not logic. "Yes," she said quietly. "Good. Another two saved." They stood. Elena guided them halfway, then froze. A hand landed on her shoulder, firm, heavy, final, one of the men. She turned slowly. He stared at her, smile polite but eyes dead. "No more outside service," he said. His voice was calm. Absolute. Elena looked at his hand on her shoulder. Her fingers twitched, 1 centimeter. A movement invisible to the world but loud to anyone trained. She nodded once, stepping aside as if obeying. The couple hesitated. The man glared at them. They hurried out the door, only to find it wouldn't open. They tugged. Panic whispered into their eyes. "Sit down," the man ordered. They obeyed. Elena's jaw tightened. Rage whispered, helpless and quiet, but she smothered it. Control, patience, precision. Alexander stood now, slowly, hands visible, posture relaxed. A millionaire dining quietly, turning into a man confronting fate. "What do you want?" he said, voice low, steady. The leader stepped forward. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. "Professionals don't." "You," he replied simply. The other men straightened around the room, forming angles, lanes, traps. The one at the back door slid his jacket open. Glimpse of metal. Confirmation. The maitre d' finally sensed something. He stuttered, "Gentlemen, if—" "Sit." A single word, ice-sharp. The maitre d' sat instantly. Elena stepped behind a pillar, fingers brushing her apron pocket. No weapon. Only training. Only nerve. Only timing. Alexander's chin lifted 1/2 inch. Defiance, not fear. "You've chosen the wrong night," he murmured. The leader stared at him, blank, unbothered. "No," he replied. "The perfect one." Elena's pulse steadied. Not panic, readiness. Shelves rattled softly. Glass caught the tremor of tension. The violin music swelled, unaware it would soon be drowned by chaos. She glanced at the wine bottle on the counter. Heavy, solid grip, perfect arc. Another at the dessert bar, reachable. Pepper gel still in kitchen. 5 steps, turn, grab. Too far to sprint safely. Her eyes narrowed. She wasn't waiting for orders. She wasn't waiting for fate. The moment between peace and violence was closing, sealing like a vault door. And when it slammed shut, blood would decide the future. Her stance shifted. Tiny weight transfer. Unnoticed by anyone but Alexander. He saw it. So did the leader. And in that single breath, the world held its posture, suspended between destruction and resistance. 5. Armed men, 1 billionaire, 1 waitress. No one ever realized wasn't just a waitress, not anymore. And the first spark was seconds away. Silence. Not peaceful silence. Predator silence. Silence that hums, waiting to erupt. 5 men. Formation set. Customers frozen. Breath small and terrified. The chandelier lights trembled faintly, as if the building itself sensed what came next. Alexander Voss stood tall, posture calm, but lethal in its stillness. He looked like a man who had seen death before, and refused to bow to it. Elena, from behind the pillar, shifted her weight again, barely. She seemed small compared to the men circling the restaurant, but her stillness held a deeper truth. She was not prey. The leader stepped closer to Alexander. Voice low enough only a trained ear caught the edge in it. "Walk with us quietly," he said, "and no civilians get hurt." A lie. Elena knew it. Alexander knew it. Men like this didn't leave loose ends. Alexander's jaw tightened. His fingers flexed once. That same subtle hand signal she'd once learned to read. Danger now. Move. The leader's hand drifted toward his jacket. Fingers brushing metal. That was the match. Before steel could flash, crack, not a gunshot, a sound sharper. Glass exploding. Elena launched. A blur. A wine bottle shattered against the head of the nearest attacker before anyone processed she had moved. Glass rained, ruby wine splashing across his face like blood. He staggered, roaring. Chaos detonated. Another man lunged, going for his weapon. Too slow. Elena pivoted, elbow whipping forward into his throat with precise, deadly force. Not wild. Controlled. A strike learned, drilled, perfected. He choked, air stolen, collapsing. Gasps shot across the restaurant. Screams followed. Dinner guests scrambling under tables, chairs crashing. The leader spun, eyes rage-filled. "Take her down!" He didn't finish. Alexander slammed his palm against the leader's wrist, twisting and forcing the weapon offline. Quick, efficient, not random luck. Skill. They were both trained. The gun went off, a deafening burst, shattering a crystal decanter on the bar. Spray glittering like diamonds and dust. Panic erupted. But Elena's world slowed. Fight mode. Tunnel focus. No sound but heartbeats and motion. Another attacker lunged, knife drawn. The police sirens had faded, swallowed by city noise. Security teams were dispersing. Outside, camera flashes blinked like electric fireflies. Hungry reporters gathering as rumors seeped into the street. But inside La Mirabelle, silence lingered like a ghost refusing to leave. Chairs stood crooked. Shattered glass sparkled like frost on the floor. A lone plate of creme brulee sat untouched, custard trembling from earlier chaos. The violin playlist had ended. Only the hum of ventilation filled the space, and in that aftermath, everyone was still trying to breathe. The maitre d', hands trembling, poured himself water he didn't drink. A couple hugged near the corner booth, whispering prayers. A child, the one who had nearly been lured outside with chocolate tarts, clung to her mother, thumb in her mouth, eyes wide, not fully understanding, but knowing something monstrous had visited and been slain. Elena didn't return. She was gone the moment. She stepped out, yet her presence clung to the air like the echo of a whirlwind. His tailored suit had a crease now, a faint smear of dust on his cuff. His hair was slightly disheveled, a rarity for a man who controlled every fiber of his appearance. But his demeanor, untouched steel. He stared at the door Elena had vanished through. No footsteps followed her. No guards chased her, no orders barked to retrieve her. He had told them all, let her go. Power usually spoke loudly. Tonight, it whispered. He walked slowly to the counter where she had first noticed the threat. A wine glass still sat there, lipstick faint on the rim, a customer's, not hers. But for a moment he let himself pretend. He lifted it, studying the glass like it contained answers. Then he set it down gently. A soft voice interrupted. "Sir." "Mr. Voss?" It was the maitre d', voice small, face pale, hand still shaking. Would you like us to call someone for you?" "Your security team." "They are here," he replied softly. "Yes, sir, but personally, I mean." Alexander turned to him, and for the first time that night, his features softened into something resembling humanity. Not weakness, reflection. "I had someone," he murmured, a pause. Then a softer addendum, "and I let her disappear." The maitre d' didn't understand. He bowed slightly and stepped away, eyes darting nervously at the overturned tables, like disaster might somehow awaken again. Alexander walked to the terrace. Night air washed over him. Cooler, calmer, cleansing. From here, the city stretched out like a circuit board, glowing windows, car lights crawling like fireflies, tall glass towers stitching heaven to the ground. Life continued, indifferent, unaware, just as it always did when ordinary people survived danger they never prepared for. He leaned on the railing, jaw tight, breath steady, but pulse still carrying battlefield echoes inside veins that once knew war, too. Few people in the world knew it. Fewer believed it. Alexander Voss had once served before he ever signed a billion-dollar deal. Not in drafts or front lines like common soldiers, but in shadows. There was a reason he recognized Elena's stance. Before she revealed it, a reason he wasn't as shocked as the others. The past wasn't a grave. When ghosts still walked, guests gathered near each other. Drawn together by fear and gratitude, strangers minutes earlier now bonded by survival. The woman from the dessert table wiped tears from her cheeks. She wasn't just a waitress, she whispered. Her partner nodded slowly. She saved us all. The mother of the little girl looked toward the kitchen, heart pounding but steady now, whispering softly to comfort her child. Some angels don't have wings. Her husband added quietly, no. Some angels know how to fight. The maitre d' exhaled sharply, chest rising, eyes wet. He whispered almost reverently, she could have run, but she stayed. And everywhere, the same thought bloomed. We were saved by a stranger who didn't owe us anything. A security commander approached him, tall, stern, loaded with armor and authority. We traced the men, the commander reported. They're not freelancers. International contract cell. Expensive, coordinated. Alexander nodded silently. They were sent for you, the commander continued. A beat, quiet. Then, do we retaliate? It wasn't a question of legality. It was a question of war. Alexander's gaze remained steady, his voice cool, his tone reminiscent of operations command rooms buried in foreign soil. No retaliation, the officer blinked. Sir, not until we know who issued the contract, Voss said. And when we do, we won't strike blindly. He paused, gaze distant, sharp, not thinking of fear, thinking of chess moves yet unseen. Ghosts attacked me tonight, he murmured. And a ghost saved me. His fist closed once, slow, deliberate. I don't hunt shadows. I wait for them to walk into the light. The commander said nothing. He knew this tone. He had heard it from commanders before marching into silent operations where names weren't spoken and victories never made the news. He only nodded. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, down a quiet street, Elena walked alone. Her steps were unhurried now. Every movement deliberate, silent, measured. The cold wind brushed her face, stinging the cut at her lip. She didn't wipe it. Her breathing had slowed, but adrenaline still hummed in her blood like a fading storm. She paused under a street lamp. Soft amber light washed over her, revealing the truth beneath tired eyes. She was shaking. Not with fear, with the come-down of a beast forced to wake. Her fingers flexed involuntarily. Years. She had trained years to bury that part of herself, a quiet life. Anonymous customers, smiling at people who ordered sparkling water like it mattered. Pretending tips meant something. She'd learned to exhale again after war. And now, tonight ripped that life open. She wasn't angry. Not exactly, but grief, quiet, raw, curled in her chest. Not grief for killing. That didn't haunt her. Grief because she had hoped she'd never have to be that person again. She pressed a hand to her rib, bruised from the knife graze. Pain reminded her she was alive. She whispered to the night, I didn't want this. The wind carried her voice away like dust. A city bus passed, doors hissing, indifferent to destiny or violence or ghosts who walked in daylight. A stray dog sniffed near a trash bin, tail wagging at nothing. Life moved on. She would too. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded slip of paper, creased, worn, edges softened like something kept long after value expired. numbers, coordinates, a code phrase scribbled faintly. She stared at it. The world she escaped tugged at memory like a hook. Finally, she stuffed it back away. No, she whispered. She wasn't going back. Not yet. Maybe never. Back inside, Alexander turned to leave. A restaurant manager ran toward him, breathless. "Sir, we found this, in the kitchen emergency box." He held up a small cloth bundle, carefully folded. Alexander opened it. Inside lay a black wristband worn with age, military spec, a tiny silver token with no emblem, a faded patch, a hawk's wing, no name. No unit, just the symbol used by people who didn't exist on paper, a ghost's calling card, or farewell. Alexander stared at it quietly. He whispered almost to himself, she didn't run. She chose to leave. Then, surprisingly, he smiled just a little. A rare thing, gentle, proud. A commander's smile for a soldier who walked her own path, not beneath him. Not behind him. Parallel. He slipped the token into his suit pocket like a sacred item. "When she's ready," he murmured, "she'll know where to find me." Impact settled like dusk. The world outside would never know what really happened. News headlines would spin versions. Rumors would twist. Security reports would bury details under ink and secrecy. But every soul in that restaurant tonight, rich, middle class, young, old, fearful, hopeful, broken, human, would remember one truth. Sometimes the hero isn't the one in a suit, nor the one with bodyguards. Sometimes it's the quiet one, who carries storms in silence and fights only when forced. As Alexander stepped into his armored car, the city lights flickering across the black paint like falling stars, he closed his eyes briefly. In the silence of the leather-lined back seat, he whispered one sentence only the driver heard. "She saved them, and I owe her a life." Outside, somewhere across the city, Elena walked farther into anonymity. Coat pulled tight, hair loose, steps steady. Her world didn't end tonight. It reopened. A dormant name stirred in the dark, one she hadn't spoken in years, but not yet. For now she remained a waitress to the world. A ghost in plain sight, invisible, watchful, alive, and dangerous only to those who forced her to remember who she was.